All right, what's up, ICA? I know it's been a little bit, but let's go through a bit of an update. I don't know if you guys have necessarily been looking through my channel recently. If you've been lurking, it would be awesome if you guys could give me some emojis here and there to see if you notice things as well. But I've been trying to help you guys see how there's a bit of divergence that is starting to form. So like MULN, right? MULN. You do have a downtrend, but then you do have this one's a very small one, but here's a bigger divergence where you have your values that are coming down, but still RSI and our stochastic are showing higher indications, and so therefore could be reverting. MULN did pop a little bit more. You also have what I showed you here. So this is a part of that, multi-time frame confluence where it's starting to show on multiple indication or multiple time frames. So SPY was starting to get a little bit overextended. You'll see here, it's getting pretty far down, right? And every time that it's hit this low on the stochastic, at least, it starts to revert back up, okay? And in addition to that, what I want to point out was it creeps up from the smaller time frame. So here's the 2-hour time frame where you have these downward, this downtrend, and you're starting to see it getting very, very far down, overextended as well. So that's where I went and said that. What else? Divergence on the 1 hour as well, starting to curl up here too, bouncing back up. 15-minute is where it's really starting to show, right? You have this downtrend, but it's, pretty much similar prices, but this is starting to curl up there. So here was at about 397, right? It did come a little bit lower, so we'll just say 397. And a little bit later, right, just a couple of minutes later, we had this pop right here. So you'll see how it went from there. It popped out of that because the divergence of this was showing that not only we overextended, oversold, but also the indicators were showing there's this crossing and we do have that bullish divergence. Okay, what else? MULN, I showed you, this was HYG. HYG, they took out puts on this while it was at 75.56, a strike for that quite far out, okay? But let's go back down to where I was. But if you take a look at the chart for HYG, it's now down below 75. So it's already gone down 75 cents from the other day. They've got a lot of time. But here's another thing too, daily, it is starting to get kind of far down on the stochastic. Stochastic shows it could have a little bit of relief. RSI is not quite there yet. So RSI, does help, but keep in mind can be a little faulty from time to time. I like to use this as stochastic to get an indication of some, quick movements of sorts. The PCC, I want to point out PCC, you'll notice, we have these big spikes and coming back and forth. So above 1 is where we have puts being favored. So puts, and here we'll have this move up and then we'll, it quickly reverts back and forth. So it likes to move back and forth because you can remember if the market happens to be fearful, you want to be greedy. And then if you're greedy, you want to be fearful. So it's always reverting back and forth depending on what the market sentiment is. All right. Here's an interesting one too. I should double check and update this. This was from right before market close, so not too bad. But the amount of dollars in puts drastically outweighs the calls right now. It's almost double. So you can see how people are leaning very bearish right now, but the volume as well happens to be kind of equal. So just something to consider. What that ultimately means is people are putting more onto the bearish side, okay? And that is also, if it stays that way and price starts to and continues to move that way, the options market will, have to do their own hedging of sorts. All right, with that being said, something that I want to point out, we didn't see any big money prints after close today. We did have some stuff that came in and we actually didn't see anything in terms of any ETF flow after close, at least from what I remember, right? Yeah, exactly. So nothing after. So usually you'll see something, but again, Tuesday, Thursday, you can understand could be a little bit less likely. Monday, Wednesday, Friday are bigger days of contract closes. And also obviously Friday, the weekly close or the monthly close, you got to keep in mind, could be situations to look out for. You know, when those candlesticks are fully formed, they like to take their position there. Okay, I was trying to make sure you guys see this in the chat, but let's just go over this a little bit more. What I've got is just SPY pulled up on the daily. Okay, remember we said that the ones that were in my class just this last week, what I was saying was that this is a bit of indecision. We don't quite know what to do right here. There is a possibility of heading back up toward this resistance eventually once we do look for relief, but even the RSI still shows there's room to drop, okay? So, however, let's go from here. I'm gonna just show you something like the 15-minute. Here on the 15-minute though, right, I showed you that divergence where I'll even exaggerate these so you can see. Right. Okay. You can even say this one's technically red coming down. So that's that divergence. And on that second, it bounced up and started to go up. Now I'm thinking this could potentially form a head and an inverse head and shoulders to go back up. But as of right now, it did just close a little bit lower, nothing major. If we break down below, we'll definitely head further down. But if we do head back toward these two, there is a possibility we'll come back to retest some of the higher moving averages that exist. There's that divergence, you know, it's already kind of playing out. This one's a bigger divergence. You can imagine you've got this right here, it's positive, this right here, it's positive, and you've got this big negative divergence here. So could we see a bigger pop? I think that's very possible, especially because over the course of the last couple of days, we had such a quick move down. So all of our indicators, you know, are showing that we oversold very quickly. Does it mean that we have to pop back up? No, but it's kind of like this right here, okay? Because we recently just went through it. We moved down so fast that all our indicators dropped so drastically. And so it creates a little bit of a trading range, but very quickly we pop up above, trap more people, and then head further down, okay? So right now, same idea, okay? We've had this came down, okay? Just like earlier, came down, and now we're at this bottom range. All right, now the previous one showed better divergence here. Not as much right now, right here. If you notice, RSI is actually still headed down, but we are quite far down overextended too. And same with the stochastic that I have, the green and red lines above here. So that's showing, and let me pull this further. And what that ultimately is showing that, you know what, right here, we could potentially have a little bit more of a pop here. So this could come back up toward here before we head back down, okay? Could head toward this area, or you could imagine could even head higher if we do want to test out some of these other moving averages that are moving down. 2 hour, still similar, right? Not too much that changes in our daily. Just shows, yeah, there's still some room to go down, but the stochastic, here's another thing. If you pull up the actual numbers here, 3, right? 3.7, what I'm doing is I'm looking on the left right over here where the numbers show 3.7 and 13.44. So again, it is quite far down there, right? Even more though, more so than from before. Now, remember we have this too. Let's get rid of all that. We'll just get rid of this real quick. Okay, so there already was this that we had drawn from the bottom here to the top here. what we already noticed was that we closed right here at the 0.382, which was really, really nice to see inside that golden pocket. That's good to know, right? This golden pocket. And then we immediately started to respect and trade the next channel below, this next fib level below. See, look at that. We bounced above and stayed above that 0.5. So keep an eye. If we do break down below, we very, very likely are going to come and test out this range right here. You see that? Another thing I wanted to point out too was, if I stretch this all the way out, notice when your fibs do have levels that coincide quite nicely along with it. You see that? And so you do have some very distinct areas where it was respected. Okay. Measurement of that, here's, oh, let's go into this too. Let's do it on the hourly. I'm gonna trash this up here. We're just gonna look up at this. Now, I wanna point out that this is pretty distinct of a B, C type pattern. Does that make sense? And that ABC type pattern, you can kind of look into it a little closer to see if you notice smaller zigzags. So sometimes you could say, well, ABC is this one big move, right? You can have a, say, ABC, or some might even call it more stretched out of an ABC, right? That zigzag. And you have a very distinct one down here as well. Okay. So when you have two of these ABCs that connect, the big one is technically considered what we would say is a double combo wave. So the first ABC, the second ABC, and the third ABC. And what we want to look for here is the measurement of this, the measurement of that first move down, right? That's about 4% or 17.75. Then you have this here, a little bit more. Okay, let's double check this all the way to the bottom here, almost 20. So let's look at that extension then. We measure, let's scoot this over. If this was a one move down, plot that onto the second leg. You see how it's clustering around the first fib level that I've drawn here. All right, next level would be to aim for that if it continues to break. Okay. Now there's Apple. Apple so far still looks pretty strong, but there's some things about it. You know, they do have an event coming up, right? Let me check that. The September 7th event. So keep that in mind. Something, you know, they usually release news and talk about what they're about to do. So keep in mind that could pop, but it also could give, you know, investors information about how, you know, maybe there are things struggling with the supplies. Let's see, this is just expand. Yeah, a little bit of a falling expansion. You've got this wedge coming straight down. So right now, right, falling wedge, it is kind of hitting an apex of sorts, right? It's getting close to the very bottom. As it squeezes there, it already is rounding around. So keep this as well. I've also noticed that we do have a bit of this divergence that is happening. And as a result, I would not be surprised to see a bit of a relief for Apple coming. I'm not sure if it will necessarily close the gap or maybe just bounce off of it, or even it might not even make it all the way up. Okay, there's a lot of big picture reasons for why the markets are struggling. And keep in mind this on the 1 hour chart. If I pull out to something like the daily, the stochastic showing it's very far down there, but the RSI still has some room. Okay. Similar to that as well, if you just take just about every single one of the charts right now have some sort of rally that we had from recent lows in June. And if you just measure that entire move, see if you can notice where we're hitting fib levels. That's always a good exercise to practice if you're having trouble finding your price targets, right? We broke down into this channel. Right now, we still bounce back up. We're still above it, but that 158, when that does break and we close below it, you can pretty much, you know, think about how we're going to head back toward this 0.5 or potentially even the 0.618 if we start to lose steam, and, you know, potentially the Fed in those situations may be spooking the markets. Roblox, similar thing. Look at that 0.5 rejected, came back, but came back down. So we'll see, breaking above or breaking below. This is an important battle zone right now. So you do have this bit of a potential head and shoulders that could be forming that could have create a dump too. So just keep that in mind. Then your next target would be toward this value. MULN, I was trying to show you guys that there was that bit of divergence, but it's fairly small. This on the daily isn't exactly there, but if you go into something like 2 hour and 1 hour, right, you got these things starting to curl here. Look at that. This coming down, this is starting to curl, this is starting to curl. 2 hour time frame. And let's go down to something like 30. Right, similar thing. Divergence is appearing, so keep that in mind, right? While price is showing that it's going further down, it's not going into as oversold conditions before it's getting bought up, meaning that there's possible, you know, there's more interest earlier. And also, let's do this real quick. This is only going to show daily. Okay, so a little bit of covering starting possibly. Okay, that's still getting, you know, shorts are piling up still. Okay, they still got to get out. It's on the higher end of it, but not the highest. I would, you know, you definitely would love to see it higher up here, but right now there's still a bit of a small squeeze coming, is my opinion, getting some of those shorts out. Okay, big picture, what I want to point out also, the VIX. What did I say, you guys, about the VIX? We're gonna have this breakout. After we break out, we're usually gonna have a little bit of a relaxation and another pop, maybe another one, right? Because it usually takes a little bit of time before it heads up. So it could even still come back down, a little bit more relaxation before it goes and spikes up. And there's, you know, there's the whole situation with China that's still looming overhead. DXY still hasn't completely broken out, but it's really creating this flag up here. And it's looking like it's very likely going to head further up. When it does break out, we don't know, but hey, that's why we would do something like this. Put a alert right here so that when it does break above that, you'll get an alert. And you know what does that mean? When that happens, you know, I'll tell the Discord, don't worry, but when that happens, that means the markets are very likely headed down. Okay. Let's pull this one up. Oh yeah, let's see where PCC ended up. Puts to calls ratio ended up where? Ended up being bearish. Okay. So there could be, you know, there very likely could be a situation where we start a little bit more bullish and then head further back up to bearish again, but that could cause that relief that we're talking about, right? Okay. Anything else that I wanted to talk about? Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Let's pull up SPY and let's go bigger picture. Let's go into our weekly. And I don't need any of that stuff right now. All I need to show you is let's talk about big picture move. We have our fibs from before. Now we have the fibs from here. So we're going to take the bottom from here and look at the top. That didn't do it. Hold up right there to the top. And so look at this in terms of where are the fibs that we're respecting, right? We respected this first, but we came down into this golden pocket. We've now rejected these values up here. So very good, target would be toward this. If we fail to hold that, there's a range down here and then back toward these. Now, these moving averages that I have drawn on here are weekly, so they're really, really large. It's not too much to worry, too much to worry about, but keep in mind, 200 week moving average down here, it is something that will act as some form of support. So currently, if we do have this as a bigger picture ABC, and you could have an up 1, 2, 3 ABC connection. Okay, so let's do that a different color. ABC. We very possibly could be doing our next A, B, C down here to mirror something like that first one. Okay, and in terms of Elliott wave, that would just be our XYZ movement, which is a double correction. Okay, I feel like that's essentially what I need to go over. Keep in mind CPI data comes out on the 13th, and then we have Fed meeting. I saw 16th, and then I saw on the actual website said 20th. I'll double check that and I'll add it on to the chat for you guys. But we are poised to raise rates by 75 basis points. What CPI data does tell us will make that ultimate decision. But again, whether or not we'll break up above, we'll have to see. It is still a small possibility that we do have this impulse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But keep in mind, 4 can't break down below where 1 is right now. So we do have a little bit of range where it might end up getting invalidated. All right. And especially on the daily, I want to point out, we have closed below this moving average, which is a bad sign. Okay. So below this, and below this, let me give you the numbers as well, just so you see them too. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. So 50-day, right, is that last one, is the closest one to support, but we've already broken through the green and the blue. Okay, so those already have not held for us in terms of that didn't hold. And this green, it went above, but now the green is not holding. And now the yellow one here, we've now closed below. All right. So keep in mind, what is my prediction for this is we could have a small rally before we head further down. Otherwise, if there's reason for with CPI data, I could see us heading further up if it really shows inflation's peaked. All right. If we get much lower than this, let's say this has, that percentage has headed down towards 7 or even 6. Then certain things are working. This very likely will rally because that might show that the Fed won't have to tighten as much. But still, I don't know, I'll leave that up and open to debate with you guys. What do you feel about prices? Have prices relaxed? I feel like the grocery store prices have gotten a little bit better. Gas prices have gotten a little bit better, but that's not to say that they can't spike again or spike more. There is potential food famine coming, and there is also potential, real quick here, where's my US oil? Oil's down below 100, it's at 92, right? So it's nice to see that how it's come back down, but it is starting to curl just a tiny little bit. So, you know, it did end up keeping this as support. So does this just create an ABC correction before we head further up, right? Is this just a big ugly bull flag that will cause oil prices to spike back up above 130? If that does happen, that's going to cause a lot of pain. Okay. All right. Hope that was useful, you guys. Send me other questions you guys have, and I'll help you guys out with that. And good luck with the trades, and keep me in the loop.